Hi everybody, welcome to Jewish Scroll. My name is Jared. I'm not Jewish, but I'm trying to learn everything that I can about Judaism. Yesterday, I was looking at my friend Adam's YouTube channel. He's the one on the right. And he did this video that you're looking at right here, where he interviewed Joshua Wander, and they were having a very serious discussion about sacrificing a lamb on the Temple Mount. And they sounded pretty serious about it. In fact, I'm going to read some of the transcript, but it's worth watching the whole video. Just right off the bat, I want to let you know I'm not advocating for anything that would lead to violence or breaking the law, or I'm just a neutral observer. I'm interested in Jewish teachings and doctrine and history and what's going on right now in the Jewish world. And I know that not all Jews would support this because there's lots of different opinions when it comes to doing this type of thing, sacrifices on the Temple Mount, building the temple, who's supposed to do it. There's some Jews that believe that none of this should be happening. The state of Israel shouldn't exist because Messiah is the one who's supposed to perform all this work. So I want you to understand where I'm coming from. I'm just very interested in this. And if they successfully do this, well, it's going to be the first time in 2,000 years, and it's probably going to take things to a whole new level, both in the Jewish world as well as the geopolitical world, especially with this war with Iran. I have no idea what would happen, but there'd probably be fireworks, most likely. If they were to do this, and don't worry, I'll get to what they said in the video, but if they were to do this, my understanding is that it would take place on Wednesday, April 1st. I'm recording this on Monday night, so for most of you, this would be tomorrow that this would happen, if they successfully do it. So let me read just part of what they were talking about, and then we're going to go through the history of other attempts to perform sacrifices on the Temple Mount and just look at a lot of interesting things. So at this part, Joshua, and by the way, Joshua here on the left, I guess we better introduce who he is. So Adam on the right, he's a journalist with Israel 365 News, and he has this YouTube channel. I'll put the link for his channel in the description box below if you'd like to subscribe. And his friend Joshua Wander is an American-born Israeli rabbi, Aliyah activist. Aliyah is when Jews move to the land of Israel, and former Zaka spokesman. And then it does a breakdown of all the different things that he's done. He recreated, in this part right here, he recreated the silver temple trumpets, and they've been used a couple times. There's one article where they were blown over the Temple Mount. And then, like we already read, he was part of Zaka, which is a search and rescue organization. There he is with his silver trumpets. And then he has been involved in emergency preparedness, and he made an appearance on National Geographic's Doomsday Preppers. Let's see, we already talked about Aliyah advocacy. He's written, including for Times of Israel, he's written some blog posts for them. He was involved in an attempt to revive the Sanhedrin. We actually talked about that in my first video. I didn't realize that the Sanhedrin is a bet din made up of 71 rabbis. We looked at the scripture where God commanded for judges, and so that's a reference to them. He's been involved with the Red Heifers. At this part, it says, according to participants in the initiative, early discussions about bringing Red Heifers to Israel were held informally among activists and supporters, including conversations that reportedly took place in Wander's home. Political campaigns and whatever. So he's definitely anxious for things to happen. He's looking forward to the Third Temple. He's an activist. He's been very involved in a lot of things. If you go to his Facebook page. He has 14,000 followers, and he openly talks about these things. He has a couple pictures here of. He says, "I've got my sheep. Do you have yours?" And he is serious about that, as you're about to see. I guess this is his. We have a beautiful blemish-free lamb. Okay. He posted this video. This is from Israel Torah channel, and it's other. I don't know if it's at the same place where he was at. He wrote this. This is a gulamovement.substack.com. This is something that he wrote. "I'm calling upon you, not just as political actors, but as moral authorities, to support a measured, responsible initiative to jointly petition the Israeli government to allow a limited, orderly performance of the Paschal sacrifice this year, in full coordination with security guidelines and without any disruption to existing religious sites. No structures would be entered, no shrines would be touched, the status of all holy places would remain unchanged. This is not a challenge to anyone's faith, it is a test of it. Do we truly believe that devotion to God must come at the expense of another? Or can we acknowledge that sincere service, even when different from our own, is something to be respected rather than feared? If leaders of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam were to stand together in support of this effort, the message would be unmistakable. That faith in one God can unite rather than divide, elevate rather than inflame." Okay, I think that's all I wanted to show to introduce him. So this is who is speaking. And he says, "So because of the war and because of the closure of the Temple Mount, this year when we went to, as we always do, go check our lambs to make sure that they're eligible for the sacrifice, that there's certain eligibility requirements that requires checking each one. Like I said, usually there are just a handful. You can count probably on one hand, maybe big ears, maybe two hands. And then Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz asks how many sheep. And then he said, this year there are dozens and dozens and dozens of sheep that have been set aside for this purpose. And keep in mind, Eliyahu, that each one of the sheep can provide for about 150 portions. This is something I still don't fully understand, but from the context of what he said in the video, it seems that if you brought a Paschal Lamb to the temple, it would be sacrificed there, and then the portion, I guess, that you would keep would have to be eaten within the biblical boundaries of the city of Jerusalem. So he's saying that a lamb can go a long ways. One lamb can provide for 150 portions. Okay, now this is the part that I really want to show you. So Adam asks, so where's the sheep right now? And then Joshua says, in an undisclosed location, but it's very, very close to where it needs to be, close enough that within half an hour, it could be where it needs to be. And then Adam says, so it's correct me if I'm wrong, but let's say on the eve of Passover, which again, let's go to hebcal.com. I believe he's referring to Wednesday, April 1st, because that's Erev Pesach. It's the 14th of Nisan. So Adam says, let's say on the eve of Passover, Netanyahu says, you know something, guys? We got to do it. Go ahead and do the Passover sacrifice. Is that what you're looking forward to? Okay, now this is like the main part of this video right here, but there's also many other interesting things to come. Joshua says, there are many scenarios. Now look at that. He said, there are many scenarios which could allow us access to that location. Of course, that would be the easiest one if the government were to decide to allow it. And again, this year, probably more than any other year in the past millennia, it would be so easy to do because, again, we're not destroying anything. We could literally have this the ceremony of the Paschal sacrifice on the eve of Passover, clear it up by evening, have everybody going home to their houses. No one would ever know. No one would ever know. No one would ever know. So it's a bit cryptic. He said, in essence, that he would prefer that the government officially allow it, but that there's many scenarios. I don't know what that means, but you have to watch this video, listen to the tone of their voice, their body language. It kind of felt like they felt like it was like almost all but certain. If that happens, I can only imagine the repercussions and how this could potentially escalate things, but maybe not. I don't know. I don't want to be naive, but one thing that they talked about was the fact that the Temple Mount has mostly been closed because of the war, both to Muslims and to Jews. And I think that has something to do with, if you have too many people up there, there aren't enough like bomb shelters. If there's like a large crowd, if you have a bunch of people up there for Ramadan, for example. Another issue recently was the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. I think that's the issue, because could you imagine if there was a missile that hit or a fragment and there's a large group of people, or not everybody could get inside a shelter because it's full. So I think that's why they have these areas shut down. But anyway, it's been closed. It's been causing a stir among Muslims because this happened right during Ramadan, and they do a lot of stuff up there during Ramadan and then the day after Ramadan. But I've seen, and these two talked about the fact that it actually went kind of peacefully. There weren't big clashes with police. And from what I've observed, since the war started with Hamas, I mean, there's been like clashes and stuff, I think, in the West Bank, and obviously the main war itself was taking place in Gaza. But as far as Jerusalem goes, it seemed relatively tame compared to years past where there were just constant clashes on the Temple Mount and Israeli police going inside Al-Aqsa Mosque, for example, and people firing fireworks at them. It's been tame. Like, I thought that would have been exacerbated because of the war, but it hasn't. So I'm saying this because maybe this gives them and others, and maybe authorities, reason to believe that they could do this without much repercussions. I don't know. What do you think? Put it in the comments below. But if it happens, I'm going to be adding it to a couple of my spreadsheets. There's this one that I have. And by the way, you can access my spreadsheets anytime. The link is in the description box of each video. But this is a spreadsheet that I created a long time ago on my other channel. It's called, I've renamed it. This one's called Signs of the Times. These are what I believe would be signs for some Jews, potentially that Messiah is going to be here soon. Again, I'm not Jewish, but I'm interested to see how other religions perceive things and maybe how God works with other people. And so there's been a lot of things that have happened for the first time in 2,000 years. If you pay attention to column G right here, if there's one of these green cells that say yes, these are things that have happened for the first time, as far as anybody knows, in 2,000 years. And it feels like it's just increasing. So for example, well, let me just show you a few things. These aren't all necessarily things that haven't happened in 2,000 years, but there's been more and more allowed and permitted on the Temple Mount. There's been more and more, I think, excitement about the Third Temple. And so, for example, you have this group. This was posted by the Temple Institute. I don't know if they're the ones that finance this, but there was some group that started to put up these signs pointing to the temple, Har Beit Hashem, with like a little picture of the temple, like adding that to official road, like highway signs. Um, a recent development, this was just last year. Here's a picture of Israeli police themselves praying on the Temple Mount. This is something that's become widely accepted, it seems, from what I can tell. For a long time, I believe you were able to go up there as a Jew and you could pray, but you had to do it silently. Well, it is not like that anymore. So you have the police. I mean, just right next to them, you see this guy that's on the ground. But it's not just that. You've had, this is a more recent phenomenon too, within the last like maybe year or two. Jewish men doing full body prostrations, which I think is a special type of prayer, or at least position for prayer. So that's been going on. You have this was just in December, so just a few months ago. You had these Jews that had brought up these candles. You can see him lighting these candles because I think this was like for Hanukkah. Well, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, I don't know, but he's lighting candles. Oh yeah, there's been a recent development where they're allowed to bring, these aren't them, but there's like these officially printed prayer cards that they can bring up and pray from. But here's some of them that have their own like prayer books that are not those official prayer cards that I was just talking about. Here's a guy that has his tefillin on. This was never allowed. I think that's it for the pictures I want to show. So the point is, like, more and more is being allowed, permitted, tolerated, and or people are just getting more daring with what they're willing to attempt and do. So when Joshua says that like his lamb could be there within a half hour, and that this is like probably the best year, he's essentially saying that this is the best year for this to potentially happen. I think he's serious, and I actually wouldn't be surprised if they did it. So let's look at years past. We were looking at my spreadsheet called Signs of the Times. This one is called Temple Preparation. I may rename it because I've added a new column for sacrifice attempt, which I guess you could say it's temple preparation, but it's also just kind of activism. But this is a spreadsheet where I'm trying to track any story that's been documented where an individual, a group, an organization has in some way tried to make the third temple a reality. So column J is the new column to help me easily pick out attempts to sacrifice animals on the Temple Mount. I probably don't have them all. I just did a search on Grok and asked it to give me kind of like a timeline and some articles so I could verify it. Everything that I have on here, you can verify in column M for references. But the first one that I have that I am aware of is back in April 2009. In fact, I think what I want to do, okay, well, I'm going to have to just kind of go one by one. So in that case, it was a goat that Noam Fetterman tried to sacrifice, along with, he had his 3 children with him. The police stopped him and banned him from the Old City for 1 week. So it was just kind of a slap on the wrist. The next one that I'm aware of is 2013, and Noam Fetterman is at it again. And it says, him and others cited for transporting an animal without a permit. The original plan was to meet at the Jaffa Gate of Jerusalem's Old City, then go to the Temple Mount and set up an altar to perform the sacrifice. This is one thing that was brought up in this interview is, I guess, okay, so the basics is that you have to have a kosher lamb or animal, has to be kosher, has to meet the requirements, and then they have to have like a special knife, or it has to be to a certain standard. And then you also have to have a Jewish priest, otherwise known as a Kohen, who can perform the ritual. You might be confused because you might be saying, well, don't you need the red heifers first? They can't do anything on there without being purified, like ritually purified by the ashes of the red heifer. Well, for certain things, I guess not. In the case of the Korban Pesach or the Paschal Lamb, I guess you don't. There's different types of sacrifices, and there's some that you do need to be purified and other ones where you don't. So, but they were talking about the fact that, you need to have a lamb, a knife, a priest, as well as an altar. And on this spreadsheet, you'll notice that I have column H where the Temple Institute has constructed several different types of altars, like smaller ones and then bigger ones. I don't know if they're all made this way, but I know that they at least have one that can be easily disassembled and then assembled on the Temple Mount very quickly. So anyway, but in this case, Noam Fetterman, I guess he had something to make an altar to go along with. This time it was both goats and lambs. The first time it was just a goat. The next one, this is April 22nd, 2016, and it's 7 youth. They attempted to sacrifice 3 goats on the Temple Mount. Let me see. Oh yeah, no. Let's go back to that story about Noam. Sorry, I need to go like article by article because I highlighted a few things I want to share. The activists plan to assemble at the promenade near the Jaffa Gate of Jerusalem's Old City at 1:30 p.m. with the goats and lambs they planned to sacrifice. At 1:45, led by Noam Fetterman, they were to begin advancing toward the Temple Mount with the hope of setting up what they term a minimal kosher altar, quote unquote. The activists said that they know their chances of success are slim and noted that in previous years, police used force to block their way and arrest some of them as well. Charge sheets were also filed against some of them on alleged unauthorized transport of animals and cruelty to animals. Some activists hoped, however, that the police would be more sympathetic to their efforts because the new Knesset and government include temple activists like MK Moshe Feiglin and Minister Uri Ariel in senior positions. The temple organizations noted that the hundreds of supporters have signed petitions calling on the government to enable the Pesach sacrifice on the Temple Mount as part of the freedom of religion and worship that the government must allow by law. So it's interesting that you do have people in government that are actually for this. In the case of these 7 youth, I have this highlighted. Ron Gilron, vice president of the Tel Aviv-based geopolitical risk consultancy, the Levantine Group, said that if the activists had succeeded in carrying out the sacrifice at the religious site, it could have caused serious unrest amid already heightened tensions between Jews and Arabs because of a recent wave of violence. Fast forward to 2026, but this was 10 years ago that this was said. And I just wonder if they even have it in them anymore to push back, because it's almost like you had all this pressure that built up. And I don't know if this is a correct assessment, but it feels like, if it's like a bubble, it's like the bubble popped and like the pressure has been let out. I could be wrong. Anyway, he adds, quote, "It is not common, yet it is not unprecedented," talking about attempting to do a sacrifice. "There is a marginal, very small group of radical Jewish settlers that have expressed numerous times in the past and continue to do what they wish to resume religious activity on the Temple Mount." Okay. The next one. Now, this one was in connection. It seems like this was in connection with something that was sanctioned. You'll notice that you have column G here for reenactments. The Temple Institute, along with other organizations, have organized these reenactments of different religious rituals, like full dress, priestly garb, and props. And in this case, this was the first time that they actually sacrificed a lamb, not on the Temple Mount, but just as part of a reenactment. And so that was April 4th of 2017. And then 5 days later, that's when you had this incident. Several activists arrested who were suspected of intending to carry out a sacrifice on the Temple Mount. Their lawyer, Itmar Ben-Gvir, decries police action. Well, it turns out that Itmar Ben-Gvir right now is in charge of the Israeli police as Minister of National Security. Now, he has been since December 2022, and as you can see, there has not been a sacrifice on the Temple Mount. But I don't know how much authority he has, if he would be able to greenlight that, if it would have to go all the way up to Netanyahu. But this guy, he is pretty belligerent. He has a lot of enemies, and he kind of wears it as a badge of pride. He's a very divisive figure, and he is really gung-ho about a Jewish presence on the Temple Mount. In fact, he has made, I think, a couple visits to the Temple Mount, which he knew would cause a stir, and he did it anyway. I'm not here to say whether it's right or wrong. I'm just neutral. But I was surprised to see his name in this article. Okay. It says here, lawyer for some of the activists, Itmar Ben-Gvir, decried the quote-unquote silencing arrests and called on police to allow quote-unquote freedom of worship. Here's one of the reenactments. You have the Kohanim, the Jewish priests, and they're doing a reenactment of something here. This is a priestly blessing that they're doing. So that's kind of interesting that this attempt happened around the same time as the reenactment. The organization that organized that one was the Sanhedrin, because at least for some time there was a Sanhedrin. I don't know that all of Judaism would have really recognized it, but the attempt by the activists, this is the first time I think that this name shows up, the Returning to the Mount organization. So they're the ones that were connected with that attempt. April 18th, 2019, 2 baby goats. 4 people arrested for attempting to smuggle 2 baby goats. In this case, I want to go to the article. This is Times of Israel. So among the 4 people were 2 journalists. Hagar Shizaf of Haaretz and Yotam Ronen of Walla News. So what they were doing is they were there to document it, to film it. So you had the 2 activists, and then you had these 2 journalists that were there to document it. And then it says, police say such incidents occur every year as zealots challenge long-standing restrictions by attempting to perform sacrifices on the spot in Jerusalem's old city where biblical temples once stood. Here's another picture of Kohanim. This is a practice ceremony, a Passover sacrifice practice ceremony. All right, let's move on to the next one. So 2 baby goats. And, I probably don't need to read the rest of these, but you have this one in 2022, and then you have 3 in 2023. And then the last one that I have is from 2024. And the way that it sounds when you read these articles is that it seems like it's a yearly thing. So I don't think that I have an article for every single attempt. There's some attempts that are probably undocumented. There were a few things, though, I wanted to read. So with this one, let's see, this is 2022. 6 Jews in their 20s were arrested Thursday morning after police suspected they were planning to sacrifice a goat at the Temple Mount in Jerusalem's Old City ahead of Passover. The suspects, residents of Jerusalem and Jewish settlements in the West Bank, were detained and taken in for questioning after police found a goat in one of the suspects' homes. The Returning to the Mount extremist group, which advocates the construction of the third Jewish temple on the site that once housed the two biblical temples, have circulated a flyer. I'm going to highlight this because this is another piece to this story. So, Returning to the Mount have circulated a flyer offering a cash prize to anyone who managed to offer a living sacrifice on the Temple Mount and to anyone arrested trying to do so. Arrested, NIS 400. I don't know if that's like the symbol or something or if that's like an abbreviation somehow for shekels, but arrested 400. Arrested with a goat / lamb 800. Managed to sacrifice goes up to 10,000. So, and then later, the provocative plans announced by Jewish activists were met with threats from Hamas on Wednesday, which said it would not allow Jews to offer sacrifices at the site, quote unquote, at any cost, while Gazan terror factions convened to discuss a unified response to the alleged aggressions. I will point out, I don't have it pulled up, but at the 100-day mark of the Hamas war, Hamas spokesperson put out an official 100-day mark statement, and he referenced the red heifers. So I don't think he mentioned these attempts to sacrifice on the Temple Mount itself, but he referenced the red heifers and how that was a part of their decision to conduct the October 7th attacks. And Hezbollah has also referenced the red heifers. So, and I don't know if for them, if they're differentiating between the two, because the red heifers would be done on the Mount of Olives, not on the Temple Mount, but maybe to them it's the same thing, or maybe they don't understand and they think that it would be done on the Temple Mount. But it was a part, it seems, of their justification for the attack. And so, if this happens on Wednesday, I feel like it's unpredictable. Maybe nothing would happen, or maybe there'd be some kind of huge response. I don't know. How would Palestinians throughout Israel, how would they respond? How would Israel's neighbors respond? How would the greater Muslim world respond? Would it change some nations' opinions or their attitude toward Israel, from positive to negative? And then, of course, the rest of the world. I feel like it's very unpredictable. Let me see if there's anything else I want to bring up. I don't want this video to go too long. This just talks about how there's other members of Knesset that called on the government to allow Jews to conduct the Paschal service on the Temple Mount this year. So there is some support within the government by some. I don't know. Just is this the time where it's actually going to go through? Would somebody actually give it the green light? This is from Jewish News Syndicate. Earlier this month, this is June 19th of 2023. Earlier this month, Likud lawmaker Amit Halevi proposed to divide the Temple Mount between Muslims and Jews and to remove Jordan's custodial status over the holy site. Halevi outlined a plan whereby Muslims would control the southern end of the 37-acre complex that contains the Al-Aqsa Mosque, while Jews would receive the central and northern area where the Dome of the Rock sits. According to Halevi, the reorganization makes sense from a religious standpoint, from a religious point of view, because that part of the Temple Mount is the holiest site in Judaism, where the first and second temples stood. The foundation stone at the center of the Dome of the Rock is where Jewish sources place the Holy of Holies. So there have been legal attempts legitimate attempts to try and change things on the Temple Mount. So could this be a year with everything that's going on and very little like violence surrounding the Temple Mount in recent years, like at least for the last couple of years? Is this a time when they'd be like, yeah, I think we could do this without any big flare up? I don't know. This Times of Israel article points out that there was a goat hidden in a baby carriage, another one in a reusable grocery bag. So that's some of the ways that people have tried to get them on the Temple Mount. But anyway, I would encourage you to watch this video. It sounded to me like he felt like it was going to happen this year, that there was a very, very real possibility. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But anyway, that's going to be it for this one. I'll talk to you guys later.